I still can't believe it sometimes. The Explorer 2 on my wrist is something that will always have me feeling surreal. It feels more special than my Rolex Submariner, and I'll tell you why. The Submariner was a watch I've coveted because it was the ultimate dive watch for me, just like a lot of us in the watch community, and rightfully so, having the heritage, brand cachet, and timeless design. But in the end, it was just another watch purchase. However, the watch that I was really after was this Explorer 2 reference 226570. Frankly, I didn't think it was going to be possible to buy this watch at the official Rolex jeweler. The store that allocated me the Submariner no longer partnered with Rolex, and so having to build a new relationship elsewhere felt daunting. This watch was going to mark a milestone for me. If everything went according to plan, this watch would land in my collection as my 40th birthday present to myself. So I had to start hunting and start early. After trying several stores with no luck in getting the call, and my birthday approaching in 3 months, I conceded and decided to purchase the Grand Seiko SBGE 285. And then a month before my birthday, I finally get the call to pick up my Explorer 2. Not only was it something that marked a milestone birthday for me, but it was a gift from my wife. All of these events leading up to this incredible polar dial on my wrist is something that the Submariner can never compete with. I also feel that the Explorer 2 is not something you see every day, unlike the ubiquitous Submariner. So in that sense, it feels a bit more special to me. I like the way the watch sits on my 6 3/4 inch wrist, even though it's large. The case measures exactly 42mm from 8 to 2 as it flares out a little bit at the bottom. The crystal diameter is 32.6mm and the bezel sits at 41.3mm. It has a thickness of 12.4mm, a lug-to-lug of 50mm, end link to end link of 52.7mm, with a lug spacing of 22mm. The bracelet tapers down to 17mm and the width of the clasp is 19.4mm. The crown has the perfect size of 7mm, just like the Submariner, but it's shallow in comparison. Now it may seem intimidating at first when you see the technical specs if you have smaller wrists. I was in that category, but as I've mentioned in my Seiko Turtle video, you want to try to measure the width of your wrist, which mine is 54.5mm, and compare that to the width of the watch. In this case, it's 52.7mm. If the watch is less than the width of your wrist, there's a good chance that the watch will fit you. After all, Omega does this exact simulation on their website. Inside the case is the caliber 3285 with a 70-hour power reserve and all the advancements that Rolex has invented, including the paramagnetic blue parachrome hairspring and the Paraflex shock absorbers. The watch is a superlative chronometer and advertised to have an accuracy of -2 to +2 seconds per day after the movement is cased in, which is what I'm getting with mine. The 3285 features a flyer GMT movement, which enables the local hour hand to be moved independently while still having the watch run. A great feature for someone who's always traveling to different time zones. So for those that are new to GMT watches, there are two types out there. You have what's called a flyer GMT, or as some others like to call it, a true GMT, which is what we have here, and the other type is a caller GMT, also known as an office GMT. This type of movement features a quick set date and the ability to independently move the GMT hand, not the local hour hand. I made a video about these differences and the pros and cons to both, so please make sure to check out that video. The dial is never boring to look at. You have that crisp white lacquer dial with large Mercedes hands and the pop of orange on that arrow-shaped GMT hand that reaches far into the fixed 24-hour bezel. The hands and indices are covered with a matte black finish to display the ultimate legibility in reading the time. The previous model 216570 had its hands and indices finished in black gloss, which could diminish the legibility in certain light reflections. so I'm really glad they switched to a matte finish with this one. The only parts that reflect light are the minute markers, the GMT hand, and the printed text. The dial also features Rolex's Chromolite, which has a blue hue for added legibility in the dark. The GMT bezel, as I've mentioned, is fixed, and I really like the way they designed it. The even numbers are large and easy to read, and the arrows in between them point towards the tip of the arrow on the GMT hand, making it easier to read the second time zone. I think the arrows on the bezel make the difference here. I've seen GMTs with lines or dots serving as the odd numbers, but the arrows for me help make reading the GMT that much easier. There are no frills with this watch. It's not meant to be flashy or be the center of attention. It's there to be functional, to tell the time, and to distinguish day and night. That's it. The case material and bracelet is made up of none other than oyster steel, which is essentially 904L steel, and it is said to be highly resistant to corrosion. The oyster bracelet is touted as one of the best in its class, and I have to agree. It is really comfortable to wear as the links are slightly curved and do a good job of wrapping around your wrist. It has a beautiful taper going from 22mm to 17mm and features the Easy Link 5mm extension as well as the Oyster Lock clasp. I would have loved for Rolex to include the Glide Lock system like they do in the Submariner, because the 5mm extension I find to be useless from my personal experience. It's either way too tight or way too loose. I'm better off using the micro adjustments within the clasp. Having said that, I do like to wear this watch on the tighter side. I find that since this watch is on the larger side, it tends to move around my wrist a lot more, and to prevent that, wearing it tight is what I feel is the best option. So it's been about 6 months since I've owned this watch, and let me tell you, I have no regrets picking this watch as my birthday present. There is something about this watch that makes me want to wear it wherever I go without any fear of banging it up. Maybe it's the tool-like presence it has, or it's mostly brushed finishing. It just feels very robust, and it gives you a sense of confidence that this thing can handle anything you throw at it. It doesn't look dainty or elegant or even refined. Rather, it looks masculine and ready for an adventure. It's one of the more under-the-radar Rolex watches you can buy, and I really like that as it fits my personality. One of the highlights of this watch for me is the sunburst brushing on that GMT bezel with its thin polished bevel. It's almost as if you're getting your own light show as the light hits the bezel while you're rotating your wrist. If you ever see someone in public admiring their watch as they turn their wrist back and forth like a crazy person, that guy might just be your next watch friend. Let me know what you guys think about the Explorer 2. Is it still the black sheep of the Rolex family, or has it surpassed, or will it surpass other models like the Submariner and the GMT Master 2? Thanks for watching.